This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between Jeremy Scott and the son he'd never known.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Minneapolis, get ready for a night of pure magic with Bill Murray and his Blood Brothers. It's happening on April 10th at the Orpheum Theater. Don't miss out for your chance to win tickets now. KFAN.com, keyword contest. That's KFAN.com, keyword contest.
Back to San Antonio, joined now by ESPN broadcaster, now longtime broadcaster, Sean Farnham.
Make me sound old.
We're all old at this point. It's unbelievable. Can we start 1997 Elite Eight UCLA Minnesota Golden Gophers?
Why are you going to talk to me about that?
Well, first of all, it doesn't count for us anymore. The banner's not there.
By the way, I think it should count for us then.
We'll call Steve Lavin.
Yeah.
But you're a freshman on that team.
Yep. We had a 10-point lead.
I remember. I was an 8th grader, so we'll make us all feel old. But what a time that had to be just to be at UCLA.
Well, I mean, it was insane. So, you come into UCLA as a freshman. I was the only freshman on the team on scholarship. And, sitting there on the bench. And if you remember that game, Jelani McCoy went out with a bruised sternum. And so our trainer took him in the back locker room, and we got him one of those T-football pads.
Yeah.
They would go over it, and we're like, he should be able to come back in. It's just a bruised sternum. He doesn't have any fractures. They x-rayed him in the back and everything at the Alamo Dome. And we had a foul out for Chris Johnson, fouled out of the game with about 5 minutes left to go, and we had a 10-point lead. And I'll never forget, Jelani said he couldn't go in. And we put Bob Myers in for now multi-executive of the year in the NBA. We went to a zone. You guys hit a couple of threes. We went back to man-to-man. You punched it inside because J.R. Henderson had 4 fouls, and we end up losing that game. And very rarely, there's only one other game I would even equate that to as far as the pain that you felt in the locker room.
Yeah.
But that was like a gut punch because everybody on the bench was like, man, we're going to the Final Four.
Right.
We're going to the Final Four. And of course, Arizona went on to win the national championship, who we beat twice that year in conference play. And, nobody was playing better down the stretch than Charles O'Bannon. He was on one. But man, that was a gut punch. That was the second worst loss of my entire career because it's just the finality of recognizing how close you were and how few and far between those opportunities are to be at a Final Four like these teams are this weekend.
And what is sick about it, Sean, is I can basically tell you the starting lineups of all of those teams better than I can what's going on down the street in San Antonio right now, right?
Yeah.
Because it's what you grow up in. I mean, you mentioned Charles Toby was on that team. Obviously, I can give it to Gophers. Mike Bibby, Miles Simon, Jason Terry, the whole bit. Really a cool time in college basketball looking back on it. Much different than it is now.
Yeah, it is much different. But I think that the game, I think one of the things that we have to start doing a better job of, and it starts with people like that are in my position that cover the sport on a consistent basis, is we consistently point out the flaws of our sport.
Totally.
And you don't see that from like Kirk Herbstreit or the guys that do college football. You don't. They tell you how great it is all the time.
Sure.
And the reality of it is, I'm here to tell you that if you actually spent the amount of time that I've spent, which is nobody's physically possible doing, of watching games, because we are in studio, we got 8 monitors in front of us. I see everything, right?
Yep.
And the quality of our game might be at its highest it's ever been. We have talent that is more spread out than it's ever been.
Right.
This idea of when NIL came into play, everybody's like, well, Duke, Kentucky, Carolina, they're clearly going to be the best 3 teams every single year. No one will be able to compete. Right. That's not the case. I mean, we have A.J. DeBanza, who's the number 1 prospect coming out of high school, going to BYU. Tell me in another era would that ever happen? It wouldn't. You look at the roster makeup, and so much has been made about the SEC, right? And the power of the SEC. Well, it's just simple. They have more money. They go out, they can get the best players in the country. Well, last time I checked, Janai Broome wasn't even recruited by South Florida.
Right.
He was at Morehead State.
Right.
Mark Sears started his career at Ohio. Walter Clayton Jr., first-team All-American. Started his career where? Iona.
Yeah.
They're going out and they're finding guys that want to challenge themselves in the biggest pond. And we talk no Cinderella in this NCAA tournament. I would argue that deeply. We have Cinderella, but it's an individual Cinderella. Sure. Cinderella was a story about an individual that wanted to go to the ball.
Yeah.
Well, we got a couple of players on all of these teams, with the exception probably of Duke, that have transferred up to a level where they want to be part of the ball, and now they're here as part of the ball. And meanwhile, for Duke, what we have is basically, if you're going to use the Cinderella analogy, that'd be the stepsisters and the stepmom,
right.
Because they're the powerhouse. They're the team that's loaded up and built the same way of a 2012 Kentucky or 2015 Duke that's led by freshmen.
Right.
Very rarely have we seen a team led by freshmen get to this stage and play as well as we've seen Duke do so far this season.
Let's stay with Duke for a second, because it's always fascinating when you're the guy that follows the guy, as you know. Your coach, Steve Lavin, was kind of one of those guys. Jim Herrick wins the national championship. He has to follow him, and in many ways people think Jim Herrick was a failure. I would argue that dramatically. It's like,
only guy outside of Wooden.
It's crazy, right?
Only guy outside of Wooden to win a championship at UCLA, so I disagree with that completely.
Silly, right?
Yeah.
But John Shire's obviously the guy. My first Final Four covering was 2010 in Indianapolis, when they kind of came out of nowhere, in like the last old school Duke team of seniors and Nolan Smith and the whole bit. And then 15, they do it with Tyus, who we know obviously from Minneapolis. So why was Shire the right guy? Of all the guys that played for K, that coached with K, and there's been a million of them, why has Shire been the right fit?
It's so much change in college athletics, right, with NIL and transfer portal and things like that. You needed somebody that could easily adapt and hadn't already been cemented in their own ways, I think. And you needed somebody that was strong enough that would say, I like what Coach K was doing here, but I'd do it differently over here.
Right.
He went out and got a mental skills coach. Duke never had that. He was one of the first to have a general manager.
Yep.
Not just any general manager, but like a legit general manager to understand and help understand this and navigate this landscape, so that he wasn't dealing with agents. He wasn't dealing with, people going, I need this much money, I do that. He was focused on coaching.
Yeah.
And that has allowed him to really connect to this younger generation. The way that he works, the way that he talks, the way that he communicates is drastically different than some of our coaches that we see even here in the Final Four. Doesn't mean there's one way to do it right, because if there was one way, everybody would copy it. But it has worked for John Shire. He's gone out. He's been able to recruit at an insanely high level. Next year's recruiting class looks every bit the part of this one.
Right.
And so you credit him for being strong enough to replace the guy and say, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to do it my way. And never look back and never hesitate. And that's maybe one of the most impressive things about Coach Shire.
Sean Farnham, ESPN broadcaster, joining us here, Radio Royal Guardsy in for Barreiro today. You've been everywhere. You've covered everything. You've been in every building. We mentioned the NIL stuff and how it can be a disruptor for teams. And I localize it to Minnesota because we bring it back to 97. That one doesn't count. One shiny moment in our history. It's awesome. Since then, not a lot's happened, as you know, in the program. So I'm curious, from an outsider's perspective that knows how this whole thing works, is this a time where Minnesota can say, well, if it is about investment in financially and getting players and all of these things, can Minnesota be a disruptor? How does a program like Minnesota cut through to where they could even be like a Wisconsin?
Mr. Target. Call up Mr. Target.
Mr. Target.
And say, yo, Tarjay, what's up? Listen, it comes down to finances. It's no longer, I was talking even with UCLA staff. It's no longer like, hey, this is a great institution that you could really further yourself academically.
Right.
The question to start with is, what's your asking price and are we in the ballpark? I want $800,000. Well, I have you valued at $4. We're too far away. Tell you what, if you get $800,000, good luck, go get it. I'm still offering you $4. Come back to me if you need to. Okay. Then they come back and they go, well, I didn't get $8. What about, well, I got $5. Are you willing to get to $5? Okay, well, let's talk about what are we doing for $5? And that's where the conversation is. Right. Recruiting's done in 3 days.
Crazy.
It's no longer this like, hey, I've known you for a long time and we have established relationships. It comes down to your financial bandwidth. So if Minnesota wants to compete, Nico's a great coach. He's won everywhere he's gone.
Right.
It's about the commitment and support he's going to get. If you're serious, look around everybody else in the Big Ten. Find out what their NIL they're offering. Are you in the ballpark? Because if you're not in the ballpark, you got no chance.
Right.
And then how you spend that money, I think, is really important. I talking to Scott Drew this year, made a strong investment in like his starting 5 and then had a couple of bench spots that he invested in. Well, 2 guys go down. Now you're down to 6 players. You can't win in the Big 12 with 6 players.
Right.
You can't win in the Big 10 with 6 players. You need to have a roster that is balanced to a certain extent with maybe one dude. Can you get the one dude and have a bunch of other parts that kind of fit around that dude?
Right.
And that really starts to work. And, again, look at the fact that we're here at the Final Four and we're talking about all of the guards for Florida were all mid-major players. You can find them.
Yep.
You got to just do your research and you got to do your due diligence and you got to know what you're getting. You can't just recruit people based off of numbers. Numbers don't equate. If you told me that A.J. Storr was going to go from averaging 17 points a game at Wisconsin to barely coming off the bench at Kansas, I would have been like, you're nuts.
Right.
Like, I saw him last year. He was really good. Bill Self's team's number 1 in the country. It didn't pay out that way because he did not play that way. He didn't fit into the system. He couldn't play off of Hunter Dickinson the way that he was needed to. And so much of that is on the staff and, most importantly, the head coaches in these moments to have a clear understanding, clear communication of what they need in the player. And if the player doesn't have the intangibles that they need, it doesn't matter about the physical statistics. It doesn't matter about the skill set if they can't fit your system. Individually, you can sit there and say, that's a really talented dude. I think A.J. Storr's a good basketball player.
Right.
He was not a good basketball player at Kansas this year.
Last couple things. What's it like? We've gotten to know Tom Crean over the last year or so because of the Anthony Edwards connection, and he's been awesome, as you can imagine. Anytime we want him on, he comes on. If he can't come on,
he loves nachos, by the way, from the cafeteria at ESPN.
Oh, does he really?
You can talk to him about that.
Well, I believe it because I see on Twitter, you guys will sit there, like you say, for 12 hours and just watch. So what's that like for you? Obviously love basketball. He obviously loves basketball. Just to sit there with and what are the conversations like?
Well, no, I've known Tom for a really, really long period of time. Like, in fact, when the Final Four was here, I want to say it was that 08 year. He was just hired in 08 by Indiana, and he was scheduled to actually host my radio program that I was doing for Fox Sports Radio at the time nationally. And we were at some bar outside of like one of the hotel, I think it's the Mad Dog pub or something like that, right on the Riverwalk.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to host with us, and then he took the IU job. And so he came down. I was with Andrew Siciliano, and he goes, hey, I want you to come upstairs. So I looked at my boss and was like, hey, Tom's asked me to go upstairs. Can Andrew do this next segment? He's like, oh, yeah, we got another coach coming on. It's fine. I go up to his room, and he gave me one of the first cream and crimson shirts.
Oh, cool.
From the press conference, if you remember they had.
Yeah, I do.
And then he came down, and we did a segment with him and wished him good luck and gone. I think he's just a very passionate coach, obviously. And I love working with, whether it's him, it's Seth Greenberg, Josh Pastner, who obviously just got back into the business at UNLV. Dallin Cuff, who I think is a very, very bright mind in college basketball. I love sitting next to all of them and just seeing their perspective on things. I've gotten in times this year where there's side out of bounds and a team struggled to get the ball in, and I'm drawing up a play going to Coach Greenberg, like, hey, Coach, this is what I would do. This is what I always used to do. And we really are just a bunch of guys that love this sport,
right,
and get the opportunity to talk about it. And I always say I'm blessed. I'm blessed to for 15 years be at ESPN. And have the chair that I have and have the experiences I have, whether it's covering the Big Ten back in the day with Joe Tessitore. One of the most famous shots I've ever made in my life was inside the barn from the second level. I bounced it in.
Yeah.
And by the way, never change the barn.
I was going to ask
change.
I mean, it's the cliched question,
change.
But that's the huge topic now.
Change.
Okay, why?
It's unique. It's what are you going to do that's unique? You're not. You're going to make something sterile that everybody else has. Be unique.
Yeah.
Be unique. Embrace the uniqueness of the arena and the history of it, the feel of it. You could update some amenities and things like that.
Yeah.
But, don't change where the floor is. Don't change where the students are when they all dress up in the animal costumes and stuff like that. That's what college basketball is about. Embrace all of that. Lean into it more. Kids aren't, by the way, making their decisions based on facilities anymore.
Right.
So don't worry about your arms race on facilities.
Right.
You want to invest money in the program. That's it. Don't invest money in upgrading facilities. I think it's a waste of money right now.
All right. I've been bought off because I'm 42 and I'm like the last generation that really cares, that remembers the greatness of Williams. It's tough for fans to get around a little bit. They do need to upgrade a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you can upgrade the concourse. You can upgrade some opportunities.
I might be bought off. Enough of you guys have told me to just leave it alone. Yes. And I have no say. And Mark Coyle was here yesterday, and that's where it seems like they're going because, like he said, we got to figure out this rev share thing before we think about any dollars.
The only thing you need is row the damn boat and support both those two programs, and good things will happen for the Gophers.
Last thing.
First recruiting letter I ever got, Minnesota.
So that would have been
Clem Haskins.
Okay.
first recruiting letter, and I fell out. I was like, man, I'm going to go to Minnesota. My coach's like, it's a letter. He didn't offer you anything. I'm like, but I'm going to go. If he offers, I'm going to go.
You could have been in the Final Four in 97.
I would have been so much happier.
To bring it full circle. It wouldn't have counted.
The weather would have been a little different.
It's dicey. Than it's
UCLA.
30 degrees there right now. I was at UCLA with the women's program this year, and I can't believe everybody doesn't want to go to school there all the time.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I've been to Minnesota, too, where I've walked to that pizza place right across from Barnes.
Yes.
The barn.
Yep.
And it's blowing sideways, snow, freezing, and it's like minus 30, and I'm going, why?
Right.
Why? It's the only place that doesn't have a walkway that I can walk inside.
I understand. It's the only place. That's what we have going for us. I think there's an underground walkway that I've heard about that I've never taken.
Don't have access to that one. That's the special one.
I haven't. All right, last thing, because I know you got to go. The legend of your broadcasting career, how it started. Is that true? That you just did like a fake sign-on basically on the court, and somebody heard it in the truck, and they said, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah. So basically, I was with I was at UCLA. Bill McDonald, now the voice of the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yep.
Was a guy that I used to always talk to, and he said, "Oh, I said, you have the easiest job in the world." I said, "Here's how I do it." And I picked up the mic. He goes, "Oh yeah?" I said, "Yeah." So I picked up the mic and said, "Hey, UCLA's taking on Arizona State, and while the focus is going to be on blah 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 blah," and I just ripped it off, and thought nothing of it. It's like 2.5 hours before the game and throwing stuff up, and the executive producer of Fox Sports West was in the truck, heard it, and goes, "Who the hell was that?"
Yeah.
Comes down, they point to me, and very quickly thereafter they asked me if I wanted to be on TV, and I said sure. And this is, obviously pre-NIL or anything like that,
right.
So I couldn't get paid for it.
Right.
But I did weekly segments on the UCLA Sports Magazine show, and while I was doing those segments, I would interview my coach, I would interview my teammates, and I just got really comfortable with the camera. And so when I got out of coaching, because I coached for a year at Pepperdine, when I got out of coaching, I called that same guy up and said, "Hey, I did all that stuff for free. Can I get an opportunity now to get paid?" Right. And he said yes. And he started like everybody else does in this business, grinding. High school sideline for football was my first gig.
Yep.
High school studio host, high school feature reporter, Big West college basketball. Then quickly after I did a game, I was given the opportunity to do Pac-12 basketball, and it just kind of steamrolled from there, and you start working your way up, and in 2010 made the jump over to ESPN. But I'm very appreciative that mic was hot.
Yeah, no kidding.
Very appreciative. And it's also, by the way, a great reminder for me.
No kidding.
You got a microphone on, somebody can hear you.
You're right.
So don't say something stupid.
Yeah. It's a great story, and obviously the rest speaks for itself. A lot of points from here to there, but I appreciate you taking so much time, and we won't change the barn just for you.
Don't change the barn, folks. The barn is great. What you got to change is your support.
I like that.
You support the Gophers, you'll be fine. And Nico's a great coach, and I think he's going to have a lot of success there if he has the support necessary. The super conferences, man, there's plenty of opportunities to get wins.
Right.
What a tournament resume looks like now is way different than it was even 2 years ago.
Sorry about 97.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend here in San
Antonio. I want my ring changed. I don't want an Elite Eight. I want a Final Four. Can we put a Final Four with an asterisk next to it?
We'll give you the banner that we can't hang up anymore.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I would hang that in my house.
We'll send it to you. We'll find it. Nico has asked about it in his press conference.
Good.
Nobody knows where it is. We'll find it. We'll send it to you.
Send it to Farnham's house, and I will put it up, and I'll have all my UCLA teammates sign it.
I love it. He's Sean Farnham, ESPN. Watch him all weekend here in San Antonio. More from Radio Row.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
I just knew him as a kid.
Long, silent voices from his past came forward.
And he was just staring at me.
And they had secrets of their own to share.
Gilbert King. I'm the son of Jeremy Lynn Scott.
I was no longer just telling the story. I was part of it.
Every time I hear about my dad, is, "Oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil."
I was becoming the bridge between a killer and the son he'd never known.
If the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
I never expected to find myself in this place. Now, I need to tell you how I got here.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Bone Valley, Season 2. Jeremy.
Jeremy, I want to tell you something.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear the entire new season ad-free with exclusive content starting April 9th, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
When we come back.
Join Meat Sauce and Nordo for a live broadcast of Saturdays with Sauce at the Twin Cities Auto Show Saturday, April 19th. Drop by the iHeart Zone from noon to 2 to catch the show, meet the guys, snag your KFAN gear. Get full details now, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Welcome back to San Antonio, Radio Row. Guardsy in for Barreiro today, and we're going to localize it again. We're going to go down the street a little bit and talk to the longtime St. Thomas coach, John Tower. How are you, Coach?
Great, Justin. Thanks for having me on.
It's good to have you. A lot of people have been begging us to have you on, so we'll get them on in San Antonio. Everybody relax. All the people on Summit are calling me.
Was that my mom or who?
No, it's Corbu Status, our friend. It's Ben Frazier, our friend.
Okay, those are good people.
Yeah, they're good people, and they rave about you. I know the feeling is mutual. But in all seriousness, it is good to have you. We've had you on before as a Division III coach after you won the national title a few years ago. So let's talk about why has this transition been seemingly so seamless? I'm sure you'll tell me a lot's gone into it, but the transition from D3 to D1 seems like you guys just really haven't missed a beat.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. It has not been seamless, and by that I just mean there's been a bunch of tireless work that's gone into it. And, when you look at jumping D3 to D1, I always joke there's not a D3 to D1 book for dummies. So the blueprint isn't there, but I think our leadership team, Phil Eston, our VP of Athletics, our president, Rob Bisher, our board, they've just done such an unbelievable job sort of navigating this amidst all the other turbulence in college athletics. But I think more than anything, we've really doubled down on things that we believe strongly in. Rather than try to reinvent the wheel, it's here's what our culture is all about. For us, specifically in basketball, here's our style of play, here are our values, and so we've really doubled down on those core values, and so far the results to win 19, 20, and 24 games the last 3 years certainly speak to that, but to me it's way more about the qualitative way we play, and I think we continue to build something that fans in Minnesota and beyond are really going to enjoy watching.
Everybody wants to take care of the ball. Every coach says you have to take care of the ball. It's not rocket science. It's not breaking news, but you've been consistently able to do that. So I remember Flip Saunders used to always say you are what you emphasize, so I'm sure it's talked about every day, but how much of that is just daily habits of the ball is everything right now, and you're always in the lowest in the country in terms of turnovers and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's certainly the ball is everything. You go in my office and all four walls have different sayings, and one of them is value the ball, value your teammates, and you have to live that, right? We always talk about 3 levels of what we teach, what we emphasize, and what we demand. I would say if you even go before that, it's who you recruit. Some of it is recruiting kids that you, number one, are really skilled, right? So passing is something we value a lot. Self-awareness, humility. I mean, those are values that sounds more like psychological profiling, but it quite frankly, like if somebody's humble and self-aware, they start to figure out, hey, that's a risky pass, don't do it. We got a lot of really smart finance majors on the team, so sometimes I'll give them some money and say, hey, would you ever throw this in the Mississippi River? And it's $1,000, and they're like, no, I know. Well, that's what the basketball is. The risk-reward propositions, for me, so much of it, college athletics is designed to be, student athletes growing in all these holistic ways. And so it's a microcosm of life. Like if you value the ball the same way you value your family, the same way you value the job that you're going to have someday, I think it's part of the reason why we've been really good at it. And part of it, frankly, is, we try to recruit really good players and then play the guys who take care of the ball.
You mentioned psychological profile. Those that know you, of course, know that you were a psychology professor, and you did that for years and years and years. You're fascinated by that. People that are hearing you for the first time might not know that. So I'm curious how you feel that gives you a leg up when you are recruiting or evaluate. I mean, are you always reading people, especially as a high schooler, especially now in the transfer portal era? You've got 10 minutes to figure out, is this guy going to be a good fit for us? So how much do you lean on that background to try to unlock that?
Well, I think certainly it's been a unique journey and background. I think the psychology piece, the freshmen in our program always do think that being a psychology professor means you can read people's minds, and so I try to disabuse them of that notion. But I do think it is a perspective. It's a way to see the world, and some of it is, the emotional intelligence somebody might have. Some of it is asking, hopefully, the right questions that help you understand, is this the right person to recruit? But quite frankly, there's a lot of it that's transparent, right? I don't want it to feel like, oh, this is some under-the-table psychological mind game. It's really more about, hey, here's what we value. And the reality is, no matter how good you are, Justin, if you turn the ball over 6 times a game, I'm going to probably tell you, Justin, you're not going to like playing here because you like throwing risky passes and we don't throw risky passes. You like shooting off one leg and we don't. And you're really good. This probably isn't the place. And so I think some of it is just the understanding of here here is what we value. And then I think the other part, I'm a numbers geek. I mean, that's sort of my aptitude test said I should become an actuarial scientist. And so I think some of it is the psychological research component of, while we don't get to design experiments, it's looking at the world through those lenses and thinking about, okay, if we compare this, which gives us the best outcome, whether that's points per possession on offense, whether it's an assist to turnover ratio. And so it probably permeates our program, but frankly, I don't talk about it a whole lot,
right? Because
I don't want our guys thinking they're part of some psychology experiment, which they're not.
Yeah, no thesis is being written on these guys. So take us into now the future here, because obviously it's an exciting time for you in the program. You've got a new arena that's, sounds fantastic. I've heard people that have been through it. It's going to be very cool. And obviously you have the ability now to participate in the tournament that we're all here for the culmination of in March Madness. So how excited are you just moving forward for what can be for your program?
Yeah, there are a lot of pinch me moments, and the last 4 years, as somebody who coached Division III basketball for 21 years, and then to jump into D1 the way we have, and I think just do it in a way that's true to St. Thomas, but now we are eligible for the tournament. That doesn't mean you get to go, but it means you have an opportunity. And, I look at the guys we've recruited over the last 4 years, and many of them knew they'll never, ever have a chance, and yet they still took a chance at St. Thomas. They still had faith in all the other things about our program and university, and the degree and all the stuff that means. But to have a new arena, Ben Frazier and his team have done just such a remarkable job. It's close to $200 million. And I think it's going to be as nice as anything in the country. Not as big, it's 5,300 seats.
Right.
But in terms of the amenities, we have our own practice facility, our women's team does, our hockey teams do. And so I think that's going to be a game changer in a lot of ways. But more than anything, we just continue to try to work tirelessly and build momentum as one of the 2 Division I basketball programs in the state. For us, it's so exciting because I think we have an opportunity to really keep top talent, and they have a chance to live out their dreams.
St. Thomas basketball coach John Tower joining us here in San Antonio. Guardsy and for Barreiro on Radio Road today. What was your approach? Obviously, the big story, and it was written about, it was covered, is that the Tommies they could win the Summit League championship, and that's what they get. They don't get to move on. Omaha, when you played them, they knew their ticket was punched right to March Madness, and they took advantage of that. So what was your approach with the team? Like, how did you handle that? You obviously just mentioned the guys came knowing that they would never, shouldn't have been a surprise to them, right? That they were going to wake up in Sioux Falls that day and know that was going to be their last day. But kind of take us through that psychology of, we can't go anywhere after this, but we can still hang this banner.
Yeah, it's been fascinating because in Division Division III, we got to a point where we felt like every year we could compete with the best teams in the country. And we were fortunate to win 2 national titles. More important than that, I felt like we could really play at that level and go as far as, as we would allow ourselves to. The last 4 years, knowing there's a finish line, that's certainly different. I think when I go back to the psychology piece, most of my research has been on intrinsic motivation and doing things because you love them for their own sake, as opposed to money, praise, rewards, accolades, etc. And so I think that's really been our approach. I mean, over the last 4 years, we've played 130 games in Division I, and I think our guys I've been so proud of them, the way they compete every day, but the way they truly treat each of those as an opportunity, and we're not looking beyond anything. So honestly, that championship game was an incredible, I think, reflection of what the guys accomplished all year, but it really was another one of those 130. Yes, it's televised nationally. Yes, there's a lot of attention on it, but it's truly about these guys just doing what they can and playing with their hearts for 40 minutes, and it's part of why I think what we have going at St. Thomas is so unique.
You're a lifelong St. Paulian. Why is this whole journey for you been just the right fit, from Cretin to St. Thomas to, obviously, you're still there. You've never left. Minnesotans rarely leave. I'm examples of that. But, I mean, you've stayed in the same spot essentially your whole life. Why has it been such a good fit?
Well, I think more than anything, it's a special university. When I look at the mission, and I feel this way as somebody who was a student there, who was an athlete there. I did go across the border to Wisconsin for 5 years in graduate school, and I've now been back 25 years. And you look at our mission, and we talk about developing students who think critically, act wisely, work skillfully to advance the common good. That's something that's easy to go to work and do every single day. And so I think often in Division I athletics, it gets lost that if I went through the majors that our guys have, the GPAs that they have, the internships that they have, it's so much more than basketball. And so that's a huge part of why I've stayed. The people at St. Thomas are special. The mission is special. And obviously it's a place that's near and dear to my heart. My dad was a 1963 grad. And so that's not the only reason you stay at a place, but when you can see the growth we've had and you believe so strongly, I look at the impact the people had on me at St. Thomas, not just just my coaches, but psychology professors. If I can have a little bit of that impact on students and give back that way, to me, that's a wonderful life.
Last couple things for John Tower, because they're running you through today. You've got the whole Radio Row gauntlet. Minneapolis is glad to get a few minutes. We all know college sports are crazy. You hinted at it a little bit. The Summit League is one of those leagues that it's probably craziest for, because you can, historically, I'm going to find a kid that's under-recruited. I'm going to develop him. I'm going to give him a chance, and he's going to stay 4 or 5 years. I think about my friend Tim Miles, who recruited a class you mentioned when they went D1. He recruited a class that knew they had one shot for the NCAA tournament. If they all redshirted their senior year, they might be able to go. That's impossible to do now, it seems like, in 2025. Or is it? Because obviously the transfer portal is going to affect you guys just like it affects everybody else. So how have you kind of navigated all of that?
Yeah, it's certainly a different world. I just came from the Division I head coaches meeting, and around the country, I think there's certainly amongst coaches a lot of questions about, like, hey, how do we protect the sanctity of college basketball, college sports? And there have been so many changes the last 4 years. I continue to try to focus on the things that we get to do every day. So over the last 2 years, 21 of our 23 undergrads who could have returned did. So 2 guys transferred.
Right.
We're going to have more guys transfer down the road, but I do think St. Thomas, and I'm admittedly biased, but I think it offers so much. And if we recruit the right people, I think kids are still going to come and want to stay 4 years. Maybe not everybody, but our rate of retention, I would have put up against anybody in the country. And I think that's not just our basketball program. That's everything that St. Thomas has to offer. And it's like anything in the world. You better adapt. And so I think we're trying to do the best possible job we can every day and believe that the outcomes, just like a win or a loss, is a byproduct of those efforts.
Lastly, and sometime I want to have you back on again, because I know you were, we had a big Star Tribune story about sports parents, and you wrote the book on it, and I'm right in the middle of the WASP era, right? I mean, the well-intentioned, overprotective, over-involved sports parent. I think we had you on when you wrote it all those years ago, but I am right in that meat grinder, and we could unpeel that onion for hours. But you've got a lot of people working on your behalf to get a game with Minnesota. How much do you appreciate those people? I mean, Nico's asked in his press conference about, hey, would you be interested in playing St. Thomas? Obviously, you're going to have your scheduling needs. I'm sure you'd love it. But what do you feel like to have so many people on your payroll to try to get a game against a Big Ten team?
Well, we try to create great opportunities for our student athletes, and we played places like Marquette and Creighton and others. We've said all along we would love to play the Gophers. And so it was fun to hear Nico say in his press conference he's open to it.
Yeah.
We may hold him to it. And Nico is a wonderful coach. The job he did at Colorado State is incredible. But I think it would be a game that would be wonderful for the state of Minnesota. And our two universities, they don't have to be identical. You don't have to draw all these comparisons. And yes, we all want to win, but I look at, they've been around 100 and some years in Division I. We've been around 4.
Right.
I don't think anybody's going to pick us to win, but we would sure love to play them. And I think it would be really, really fun. I think it would be a sellout crowd. And when you look at the types of games, Marquette versus the Badgers, Creighton versus Nebraska, I think down the road that St. Thomas versus Minnesota will be a really, really fun atmosphere for everybody involved.
Yeah, I understand why it hasn't happened and might not happen, but I also understand why it would be awesome, right? And Bob Motzko said it with the hockey stuff. He said we should play them, right? We should play St. Thomas because it is good. And Matt Margenthaler was in your chair yesterday. He says, I want a Division II roundtable for the exhibition games because it can be to steal Governor Wall's line, one Minnesota every once in a while, right?
Absolutely. And the proximity of the schools, the history, the fact that we are playing now in hockey and baseball and softball and some other sports. Scheduling is really hard in Division I basketball.
For sure.
When people ask me the biggest surprises, that's right at the top of the list in terms of just how complex it is. And so everybody has to make their own schedule. But I do think I was excited to hear Nico say that they were open to it and interested. And so hopefully that'll happen in the near future.
Yeah, we'd love to see it. Well, thanks. Great to see you again. Enjoy San Antonio. I know you've got some family down here with you, and continued success for the Tommies.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate having me on, Justin.
University of St. Thomas head coach John Tower here in San Antonio. More from Radio Row when we.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
I just knew him as a kid.
Long, silent voices from his past came forward.
And he was just staring at me.
And they had secrets of their own to share.
Gilbert King. I'm the son of Jeremy Lynn Scott.
I was no longer just telling the story. I was part of it.
Every time I hear about my dad, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between a killer and the son he'd never known.
If the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
I never expected to find myself in this place. Now, I need to tell you how I got here.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Bone Valley, Season 2. Jeremy.
Jeremy, I want to tell you something.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear the entire new season ad-free with exclusive content starting April 9th, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
Come back. San Antonio, Guardsy here, Radio Row, Final Four. It's been a lot of college basketball. We're going to pivot and do a little bit of pro basketball with PJ Carlesimo in a second. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about the Final Four and Nico Medved. He had his games in Seattle a couple of weeks ago, but we talk a lot about the Wolves, Anthony Edwards, the Western Conference, which continues to be a madhouse. We've also got a little bit of a Bill Walton tribute planned for a little bit later this segment. Russo Radio is going to join at 5 o'clock from New York. Lavelli Neal III is going to make his regular appearance at 5:30. Appreciate Westwood One bringing us down here again. I think this is my 12th Final Four. Oh, good for me. And thanks to great partners that they have, like Warner, the official ladder of NCAA March Madness, and the official ladder of construction professionals everywhere. You can conquer new heights with Warner, available locally at Acme Tools. Thanks to Warner. Thanks to Westwood One for having us. So this segment's going to be a little bit two-pronged. We'll hear some Bill Walton stuff. I want to say a few words about him because this is the first Final Four since he's passed away. We didn't have him in Phoenix a year ago either. He died last May, and I will say, it does not feel the same without him here. The last day of Final Four Radio Row stuff was always the Bill Walton day, and he took over whatever room we were in, the ballroom, the conference room, the convention hall, whatever it was. He took it over and filled the space. So it's been a little bit of a weird day that way that Bill is not here. But I do want to catch up or let you hear my conversation from earlier in the day with PJ Carlesimo, longtime NBA coach, longtime college coach, does all kinds of broadcast work. Westwood One, has done TV stuff. He does ESPN radio for the NBA. He talks a little bit about that, but some good college stuff, but a lot of stuff about the Timberwolves, who got a victory last night and somehow moved down in the standings. They won a game and lost a spot. They're in the 7th spot right now in the very crazy 5, 6, 7, 8 race in the Western Conference playoffs. So here's PJ Carlesimo from Radio Row. Welcome back to San Antonio. Guardsy here at Radio Row, Final Four, and it's always fun to chat with former college coach, former NBA coach, PJ Carlesimo here, thanks to Westwood One. PJ, it's great to see you, first of all.
It's great to be here. It's always good to be at the Final Four. It's especially selfishly for me to be back in San Antonio.
Yeah.
I had 5 wonderful years here working with Pop and the Spurs, and doesn't get any better than this week for basketball. I've been lucky with Westwood. We were in Seattle the first week, had Maryland and Arizona come out of there, go different ways, and then I was with Maryland again in San Francisco, and obviously we had Florida come out of there. So I'm looking for these 4 teams. This is a bomb Final Four. I'm really looking forward to these games.
Well, I heard you with Ryan Russillo earlier in the week, and you talked about it. That is this a trend now because of NIL and all the portal? And you think it might be, but it's 1 year. Let's let this thing play out.
Let it breathe. I hope it's not, to be honest with you, just because the game's changed too much. The game's too good, I think, or was too good. So. But hopefully things will shake out. I will say this: it's a heck of a Final Four. So if this is one of the byproducts, that's a good sign.
Well, it is. Everybody loves the Cinderellas the first weekend. The dirty secret is once they get to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, sometimes the games aren't that good. When you're dealing with the heavyweights like you are now, you might see some epic ones this weekend.
I'm never good at predicting. People ask me, and I laugh, and I go, "Hey, I didn't know when it was my own team, and I saw them every day what was going to happen from day to day." So I certainly don't know these other groups what's going on, but I will say this: I said a couple of weeks ago that I thought there weren't going to be at the. I said I don't know what's going to happen in the first round or two, but I'm telling you what. 1 through 4 seeds are so strong.
Yeah.
If somebody comes out of beyond 1-2, I'm going to be surprised. And I really didn't think it was going to be 4 1s, but I'm telling you what, they're good. They're loaded. They're extremely well coached. They defend. I hope the games live up to the expectation.
You mentioned you were in Seattle, saw Maryland come out of there. We're in Minneapolis. I know you're a big J.D. Hoyts fan. We talk about that all the time.
Every time.
Every single time. It's a tradition, unlike any other. So you got to see Colorado State, obviously, which means you got to see the new Gopher coach, Nico Medved, and how he kind of ran things. What did you notice about his teams that maybe Gopher fans listening back in Minnesota can appreciate?
Most time I've ever spent with Nico, loved getting to know him. B, not a good coach, extremely good coach. His team played so well together. I was just super impressed with the job he did. We had two of the best games with Nico, and he could still be here, to be honest with you. As much as I said no one was going to advance, you make the case if you look at the games he played. He and Arkansas were the two that people were saying, damn, forget the seed numbers. He's good enough. I think he will do a great job with the Gophers. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. The only thing I would say, and not to temper expectations too much, that league is a bear. I don't care. I mean, I'm talking to Nico. I don't care if I'm talking to Tom Izzo or just walk by Dana Altman, Danny Sprinkle sitting across from me right now. It doesn't matter. First of all, the travel's insane. I mean, there's nothing nice I can say about that travel. It makes no sense. You can't have a league with 18 teams where everybody doesn't play everybody else, but that's me being an old curmudgeon.
I'm with you, though.
I don't like it.
We have conference games this year in New York and Los Angeles.
It's two leagues. It's not one.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to win in a league with 8, 9, or 10 teams. When you got 18 and arguably 17 of them or 16 of them are all in or pretty damn close to all in. They're like no excuse jobs. Like you get a job and say, well, what do we need? Well, I need this, I need that.
Right.
Most of the jobs in that league, you don't have a long wish list to tell the athletic director or the president, like, well, if we're going to be successful here, we need to do this because these other 17 guys are doing it. Most of the other 17 guys are already doing it.
Right.
So it is a problem. Having said that, I didn't talk about the job, obviously, at the time, but what I've read and what I think just makes it an even better job is you're talking a Minnesota guy.
Yep.
For Nico to be at the University of Minnesota is fantastic. And just having seen his teams play, having gotten to know him a lot better than I used to know him, but a little bit more for our time together in Seattle. Great hire, and I think he's going to do super, super good.
Yeah, fans will love to hear that. I also want to ask you about the Wolves and the West. I was with some people yesterday. The West, you can wake up on any given day, 4 through 8. You can be 4 one day, you can be 8 10 minutes later. We're always prisoner of the moment, PJ, but it feels like it's never been crazier on the West side of things.
I agree. I think it's deeper. I think there's more good teams. I mean, for the longest time, we've been saying, hey, the East is good, but it's top heavy. I mean, Boston, has been in the finals, I think 2 of the last 3 or 2 of the last 4. They won it last year. I thought last year they were the best team in the NBA, despite what Minnesota and OKC and Denver did in the regular season. I thought they were the best team in the NBA, and it proved out. But, people say, well, the East is a lot better. Yeah, it is a lot better, but it's nowhere near. It's not even remotely like the West. But that's before you start getting into talking about the travel, all the other challenges that you have in coaching in the West that you don't have in the East. It's not a picnic, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But the difference between the two in terms of travel and competition and night in, night out, the place where you're playing and the team you're playing and how well you have to play to come up with a win, it's unbelievable. And I think I hope I'm wrong. We're doing the only 2 I know we're doing the 10-9 game on the Wednesday, whatever the hell it is, a couple weeks from now.
A week and a half, something like that.
We got that Wednesday 10-9 game, and then Friday we got the winner of the 10-9 game at the loser of 7-8 playing. That's it. After that, I'm sure we'll have a game on Sunday somewhere. We have the Western Conference Finals on ESPN Radio. Marquez Teixeira, myself, and Johnny Medani, our producer. So we'll be out west once it gets to conference finals, and we're lucky enough to do the finals again. But first 2 rounds, we'll be jumping back and forth. We'll be all over the place. I hope I get to J.D. Hoyts. I got to get I got to get a trip in there. Plus, I need my Delta miles. So
that's true. You got to get into Minneapolis.
I got to get to MSP for sure and get some wild rice soup at the airport.
That works.
I'll be happy.
That works. So with the Wolves, like they obviously trade Cat. Seismic move. basically 2 days before the season starts, and we went through this a couple of years ago with assimilating Rudy into the mix. Now you're doing it with Randall. Now you're doing it with DiVincenzo. They've had injuries. They've had a bunch of stuff. But what have you made of kind of how it's worked?
You don't know. Honestly, you truly don't know. If you had health, you'd be saying, hey, it's the first time together. These guys, you don't know. That team, it's been impossible. I mean, I respect Finchie enormously, the job he does, overcoming Mike and Nori. I don't know how he does that. He does such a great job, somehow limiting Mike's influence there, so it stays positive. But no, Mike is an old buddy, a great friend, and I love when I get their games because I enjoy them. The team is very talented. Maybe we're running out of time now. Pretty much teams are what they are, but I think the teams that have shown that they're capable of being competitive, that's going to translate in the playoffs. The biggest difference is the best thing about the NBA. It's best of 7. It's not a crapshoot. A guy sprains an ankle, you get a couple bad calls, and the guy's on the bench, and you lose a game. Usually when you play 7 times, you find out who the best team is, and that certainly argues for OKC this year. They have been not dominant, they're beyond dominant because they've done it in the West. And it's not like they're winning a lot of overtime games and close games. They are just stomping people. They're deep. They've had health issues, and they've just dealt with them, and it hasn't been a problem. So, last year it was fashionable to say, well, they're too young. They haven't been in the playoffs, and maybe that was a fact. That's not being fair to them getting beat last year, but maybe it was a fact. That excuse is out the window now. They've been in the playoffs. They have more experience than they've had in the past, and they're scary good. So I'm looking forward to it. But there's so many teams in the West, and Minnesota is certainly one of those, that when you look at the roster and you look at what that team, like on a good night, how good they are, that gives a lot of teams hope going into the playoffs. And for selfishly as a broadcaster, it means we're going to see some.
There's going to be some epics, right?
See some great,
even in the first round.
Oh, no,
I mean, 1 through 8. Yeah,
it used to be, if you were a 1, 2, 3 or something like that, you'd say, well, we're going to get to the first round. We're not going to mess this up. Well, guess what? In the West, the first round is a bloodbath right now. So, and Miami showed in the East. Miami came from 8, I think, and got all the way to the finals. So, I mean, it's playoffs are great. Everybody tells me, I don't like the NBA. I only watch during the playoffs. A, I don't like that comment. But B, okay, well, the playoffs are around the corner, so get ready.
Enjoy the weekend, PJ. It's always great to see you, and hopefully we'll see you at Hoyt's.
All right, Justin, for sure. Thank you.
PJ Carlesimo here from San Antonio. More from Radio Row when we come back. Actually, we're going to keep it here because we got a few minutes to kill before Russo Radio joins us from New York. We did a lot of pre-recorded stuff the last hour or so, a lot of basketball stuff, both college and pro. We're going to pivot back to more local stuff with some wild discussion with Russo at the top of the hour, and then Lavelli Neal III at 5:30. We're out at 6:10 tonight. Guardsy here in San Antonio. Hour or so left of the show, hour and a half left of the show here, Westwood One Radio Row. But I mentioned before we played PJ Carlesimo that this is the first Final Four without Bill Walton. He was not here in Phoenix a year ago, and we found out later, obviously, he was dealing with some health issues and passed away last May, and we did a big tribute that day. Obviously, it was literally the highlight. If there was, and people that listen to the show for a really long time know it goes all the way back to 2010. Our first Final Four, Dan and I went to in Indianapolis, and that was back when we used to stay. It was Thursday, Friday. We'd stay through the weekend. We'd do shows on Monday, and Monday was Bill Walton Day, and then we kind of cut it back to where it's just Thursday and Friday for Radio Row. So Friday was Bill Walton Day, and the last time we had him on live in person was 2019 when the Final Four was in Minneapolis. We had him on, I believe, the COVID year when there was no Final Four. We had him on by phone maybe a month or so after the Final Four was supposed to be, and that was a great conversation, but it was the highlight. And I was talking with a lot of the Westwood One people today. It is not the same without him. It's not the same without legendary Georgetown coach John Thompson, who we also had on in 2019 in person. It was they both worked for Westwood One. They both did some of the games, the halftime stuff. And it was always just a vibe when Bill Walton was in here, as you could imagine. And everybody knew when it was about his time to come into the room. You had a special chair because he was so tall. He had the back issues. You had to write down your name on the card so he could personalize every interview. And as much fun as it is to be here, there's definitely a void for sure, knowing that he's not bouncing in here and literally going to light the world on fire for the 1 to 2 hours that he was going to be. It's some of my favorite moments of being in person, and a lot of times Dan would be back in Minneapolis, and I'd be sitting here listening to him talk to Dan and seeing all the physicality of it, too, because it wasn't just the audio that made the Bill Walton stuff special. It was just his general presence. And so, given we have a minute or two here before we can break for Russo, I thought it would be fitting, and I think we're going back to 2018, which ironically is the last time the Final Four was in San Antonio, where I am now, to just remind people of the vibe, of the presence, of the enormity of spirit of Bill Walton with Dan Barreiro. Some of my favorite conversations really over the last 15 years, if you go back to 2010. So here's a little tribute in our first Final Four without the late, great Bill Walton. Look at this.
We got Walton right now?
He's walking over.
Nice.
Charlie Barker's got the chair.
Oh, even better.
Charlie Barker's got that stern look on his face saying, make sure Dan keeps it to 9 minutes.
Tell him to calm down. Tell Charlie to calm.
You'll say hello and he'll go for 9.
That's true. So
we've
got
we're aware of that
Mr. Walton's coming over. He's putting the headset on.
John Thompson later and Kenny Smith later in the program as well, and it's kind of a treat because usually we have Bill on tape. We're doing it live this year, which is kind of nice as well.
Nothing is better than live.
Bill
with Dan Barreiro, I tell you, the force of nature that just keeps changing the landscape of the world. I mean, basically like the Mississippi River, basically like the Amazon, the Columbia, the Colorado River. Dan is just one of those guys who comes in and he just keeps cruising right through, and there's nothing anybody can do to stop. You can put a dam in front of it, you can put a mountain in front of it, but he just comes right through it, and eventually he's the one still standing as we all just become dust in the wind. Dan, how the heck you doing?
I'm never better, man. It's once a year. This pretty much is everybody wants to talk to me about. Well, you're going to have Walton on this year, so here we are, ready to go, and it's great to have you.
This is what I live for myself, Dan, because you have the best questions. You always have the best perspective. So why don't you just kind of steer me into a direction, and then I'll try to follow your mindset here, and we'll travel ricochet through the universe for as long as you want to go. All
right.
I work for you, Dan.
I have one request. You do, you are become legendary on the Pac-12 games. Late at night, we get these emails from people going, did you hear Walton, the tangent he went off on? It's
Those
so
are not
much
tangents, Dan.
They're not. What would
No.
Stream of consciousness.
No, those are rebounds after I have a cosmic collision with an asteroid that has come and created the axial tilt of the universe.
That explains it. Well, here's what my point. I want you to do a game next year where literally that's all you do. You never acknowledge the action on the court. And believe me, I would still watch it start to finish.
Well, it's a television game. This is radio here, so we have to talk about something that people can think about. But when you're having it on TV, you can see everything.
The beauty of it.
So they just talk about what comes to mind, and I love that. One of the things I do in my life, and I've never been busier, Dan. I've never been happier, and I haven't been this healthy since I was 13. I mean, I have zero pain in my life physically, and I have a lot of emotional and psychological pain, and the burdens that I've been just overwhelmed with on a constant basis. But I'm just doing fantastic. I got a lot of things going on, and I go around and I give a lot of speeches, right? And so one time this group called me up and they said, Bill, we know you have this slideshow of over 800 slides from your life that you always show during your corporate presentations. But Bill, what we want you to do is we want you to just come, show the slideshow, and then just talk randomly about what you see up on the slideshow. Because during the course of my speeches, that I never look at the slideshow because I'll get distracted. And distractions are a very big problem in my life because as soon as I start going in one direction, it's very hard. My change of pace, change of direction is not as good as it used to be, Dan.
I tell you what, it still sounds pretty damn good to me.
Well, I'm trying.
I want to try one serious question on you as a father.
They're all serious questions.
Well, that's a good point. But when now look, your kid who's coaching, he can stand up for himself. Luke is, it's not like he needs you to defend him. But as a father, what has it ever been tempting? Was it ever tempting for you, as LeVar Ball is saying, the goofy stuff he is, to want to sort of, kind of jump into that thing as any father, I think, might have the instinct to do?
I speak for myself, Dan. I don't speak for other people. I don't speak for Luke. I don't speak for my wife. I don't speak for my friends. I speak for myself. And I just tell Luke and I, we don't talk about basketball, really. We just talk about life. And I just keep telling him, no matter what happens, Luke, we love you. And we're super proud of you. We're just so happy that you have the job that you have. It's an incredible opportunity for you to coach the Lakers, this spectacularly popular franchise. And that whole popularity generated and created by Chick Hearn, the greatest broadcaster in my life.
Absolutely.
And the guy that made me fall in love with basketball. And now Luke has this position after playing for 9.5 of his 10-year career with the Lakers, and to play with Shaq and Kobe and Karl Malone and Gary Payton and Pau Gasol and all these legendary guys, to play for Phil Jackson, to have Magic now as his basketball boss, to have Jeannie Buss as his basketball boss, and as his business boss, and then the incredible Laker Nation, the big purple and gold Laker Nation, just an overwhelming wave, just flowing over you with love and concern and care and support and encouragement on a constant basis. And so what I just tell Luke, we love you more than words can tell. Our love for you is unconditional and endless. But Luke, just know that we're saving your bedroom at the house for you when things don't go right. And I, in my own personal life, one of the reasons that I love to be on this show, one of the reasons I love Dan, is that there is substance, there is concern, there is empathy, there is knowledge, there is inspiration, there's motivation, and those are all things that I want to be a part of. In my life, I make my choices based on people, passion, purpose, projects, and programs. What I really try to do is I make those positive selections in my life as to who I want to associate with. I try with everything that I have, Dan, to avoid nonsense at all costs.
You do a good job of it too, I gotta say, because it's hard sometimes to sort of block out the noise, man. There's a lot of noise out there. I don't have to tell you.
There's a lot of noise. And
he does his best to avoid negativity, so that's why he loved coming on with Dan Barreiro every single year at the Final Four. Yeah, we could have played that for like an hour. We have hours of Bill Walton from the Final Four. That was about 5 minutes, and I think he got a nice sample of what these days were like when we were down here, whether it was Indy, whether it was Houston, gun belt tight, Minneapolis, the last time we talked to him in person. It's just weird not having him here, and so I thought a couple-minute tribute would be fitting today in our final hour or so from Westwood One Radio Row. We'll go back to the Twin Cities. We'll actually go back to New York and get to our Friday regulars, our end-of-the-week regulars. Lavelli Neal III joins at 5:30. Russo Radio from New York. The Wild have the Islanders tonight. Puck drop at 6:30, pregame at 6:15. Feels like a must-2-point win tonight, given where the Islanders are, given where the Wild have been, and maybe some reinforcements coming along the way here, which would be great news, helpful news. But today feels like 2 points are a must. We'll get Russo's opinion on that and a lot more when we continue from San Antonio.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between Jeremy Scott and the son he'd never known.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.